Interview for David Acosta. Question 1. There are classes and seminars out there that are targeted at women. What scares or upsets you most about what is being taught in these classes to women? What misconceptions or misinformed strategies are being shared that could cause doom to a woman being attacked? Okay, response. I believe the main misconception comes from the way such classes are advertised. So as an example, on a website I saw them advertising a woman walking alone, isolated in an unlit car park whilst texting on her phone or speaking on her phone. And then all of a sudden these pictorial depictions depict this big guy jumps out and grabs her. All of a sudden she grabs his arm, drops to her knee, throws him over, fucks him up big time like Wonder Woman, and then makes her escape. Well, it's just ridiculous from beginning to end. Such a example, first of all, depicts that she's got no street smarts whatsoever. You know, she understands nothing about awareness, pre-threat cue behaviour, or at the very least being street smart enough not to go through an unlit, darkened car park at night on her own whilst talking on her phone. So straight away she's set up as a victim. So there's no personal security in this method that's offered for advertisement to women. Next, she supposedly just turns into Wonder Woman and does a reactive technique to something he's done, when the reality is, as soon as he grabs her around the back of the neck and pulls her off her feet, she's going backward wherever he's pulling her. And yet somehow she turns into Wonder Woman and throws him over and does blah blah blah. Here's the thing that's wrong with that. If this woman was caught by surprise, as she would have been because she had no awareness, what this person is not taking into account is how she will feel in that immediate moment. And that is full of adrenaline, fucking scared, in shock, and totally inoperable. In which case she's not going to turn into Wonder Woman and make such a thing work, or any technique work under such conditions. So that's my bane. Stuff that's advertised for teaching women that could get them hurt. In my experience, teaching women, the problem to women in the main is from men in a more known environment, such as the domestic violence setting. So the male is most likely to be known to the woman. Like I said, you know, domestic abuse, a partner, a husband, a colleague at work, it could be whatever else. And now she's going to need to deal with that situation. Well, if it's ongoing domestic abuse, then she's been sapped over a period of time of her power or her ability to possibly retaliate. So teaching her anything in an immediate physical sense isn't going to work. What you need to do is teach this woman to find her own empowerment and get her power back so that she can then make a stand. But nobody looks at the teaching of women, or any subject for that matter, by first analysing the problem. Before you start giving solutions, you need to understand the problem. And the way that I've seen most women's self-protection taught doesn't depict this. Okay, question 2. You're a big fan on preemptive, or being preemptive, primarily because this is what you have tested to be true in real life situations. What would you say prevents most people from becoming preemptive when it matters most? And how can they learn to begin moving past what prevents them? Right, this is why I needed to give you this in voice recording rather than written word, because each of these questions are pretty good and intelligent, and they require a deeper answer than simple single syllables. For example, if you use the analogy, for most people that have never been in violent confrontation before, or are not used to violent dynamic, it's logical. They understand when they train, if they cultivate the ability to hit her hard, that during this very brief pre-fight moment where there's the introductory dialogue going on, the best chance they'd have of success is if they did hit first, and if they continued until the man was down. No matter what happens next, they've done the highest probability thing that they could do to win. If inside of that they still get their ass kicked, well, you know, they should survive the event, and they were the best fucking second best that anyone has ever seen. So there's no psychological black dog at the end of it. But the problem with it, from the perspective of somebody that's not used to doing that, is you can use the analogy of being at the top of a really big water slide. So a massive water slide, let's say one of the biggest in Europe. You're at the top of it and you're about to go down, but suddenly you realise, fuck, that's a fucking long way up. Once you preemptively strike, attach and then follow up, and now you are totally dominating the situation. That's how it feels when you've actually hit the fucking switch, gone down the slide, and accumulating in confidence and mass. Before you throw the preemptive strike, that's what it feels like when you're sat at the top. Now, I can show you and tell you the most productive way to deal with a threat in front of you, as long as you've got the physical attributes to hit fucking hard with knockout power and keep going, giving him absolutely no possibility of recovery or retaliation. That would be the best strategy for dealing with somebody in a violent situation. Let's say that you can do that pretty streamlined with fucking good impact power, tenacity and aggression, explosive and forward pressure. Well, there's the physical ingredients, but you need a green light in your head to make yourself do it. I can advise you about the green light in your head, but only you can push the button. So I guess there is no easy answer in terms of how I install that in my people. Progressively, the training in UC is as much psychological preparation as it is physical conditioning. So we just drill it, basically. You can also word associate in your own head so that you can take away indecision, but there's many ways. But the bottom line comes down to the only one that can actually tune in and decide to employ the skill set is you. So you have to get yourself, first of all, off the basis of what would you fight for. You need to understand your platform of programming, if you like. So my belief system begins with self-importance, if you like. Not self-importance in that I'm a hot shit, but self-importance as in I'm an important human being that's a family figure to everybody in my life. So there's too many people in my life that I couldn't live without, and there's too many people in my life that need me and couldn't live without me. Therefore I'm important, and any situation that I find myself in, I must prevail so that I can go home to that. The next layer is indignation. I'll focus my fucking indignation, my thought process. If you challenge to take me away from what I love and what I love away from me, would first of all be, how fucking dare you? You step to the scratch, I'll fucking kill you. That's it, it's done. So indignation that anyone would dare to fuck with me in that way and hurt my life. Don't misunderstand, that's the mentality of a cornered animal. If I could avoid, escape, de-escalate, run for my life, I would. The only reason I would fight now is if I was a cornered animal and it was me or them. Trust me, it's going to be me. So that's the thinking on that. But good simulation training that works in role-play dialogue, recognition of pre-threat cues in good protective kit with non-compliant dynamic will quickly get people preempting and realising the need to. So that's one way to overcome it. Third question, right, adrenal response. What is most misunderstood or underutilised when it comes to the process in a confrontation? Well, people don't talk about adrenal stress enough. They don't have the understanding that there needs to be an expectation. You know, your heart rate's going to go up, it's going to escalate massively, and various physiological effects are going to happen when the biochemistry of adrenaline hits your body. So you need to understand them. What I would do is do your own research into that, because this is too big a subject for me to answer in totality, but focus on what it does productively. What it does productively is allow you to implement more what it does productively is it can make you faster, it can make you more powerful and explosive, and it can make you more pain resistant, also to a degree resistant to shock. You can use adrenaline, so focus on what it does for you rather than the negative effects, because all effects of adrenaline are necessary. You just need to learn and understand what's going on. Question 4. What are your thoughts on breaking or fracturing knuckles during a fight? Is that where you teach palm strikes, right? So the debate about open hand over closed fist. Personally, I would use both. Do use both. First thing to understand, right? If you're going to punch somebody, you need to use the correct knuckles of the fist and hit to a correct target. That's going to give you purchase to shake the brain when you hit it. If you use the incorrect knuckles and it hits the incorrect part of the skull, you're going to break your hand. That's the dynamics. If you think you're going to have the presence of mind under pressure to target, because target is a decision-making process, then I've been in situations where I've had the presence of mind to target exactly and hit pinpoint on the chin, and I've been in situations where I've just hit everything that moved. Yeah, have I damaged my hands? Absolutely. I spent many a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night with my hands in the ice bucket, once working on the doors, particularly in the early days, in one or two places that I can think of in particular. By the age of 23, I got arthritis in all my knuckles, dislocated all my fingers, and I've got bite marks all over my hands from, well, teeth marks anyway, from punching. So I've had great effect with it, and I've had injuries from it. About the last 7 years of my door term, after being influenced by the great Pete Robbins, I decided to make the transition to open hands. So I used the same physical dynamic, which for me was a left cross right hook, and changed it to a palm strike and a slap, and then from there what happened, and it worked relatively well for me. I'm not going to say to you that you can't injure your hands at all from slapping, because I've dislocated my fingers slapping people, but you are less likely to hit your hand, just damage your hand, as you are if you do use a closed fist strike. You're also using a larger surface target area, which opens up striking area, which opens up the target to a more generic point of view. So any bony plate on the head hit with the palm will give it purchase to shake the brain and get the result you want. That's why we do it. It's the simplest. In terms of should you do one over the other? Well, if you are a puncher and your experience of violence so far has involved punching, and you have suddenly found yourself in the moment where you clench up your fist, then that's the tool you're left with, your punch. My advice would be learn to do both well and understand where both belong. Right, 5 tips on how to channel and hone your inner rage when facing a threatening situation. Right, visualization. I would visualize bringing as many senses as you can to focus on summoning that darker part of yourself. So if you imagine that you're walking to your dwelling where you live, something's wrong, the door's broken, it's open, the lights are out, you hear a murmuring at the back of the house, it sounds like your loved one, you walk towards, and so on, so on, so on. You can build up a picture where you know that the person, your significant other, is currently under threat, and you need to get there and do something before something bad happens. If you immerse yourself in terms of what you'd see, what you hear, what you feel, you'd start to get an emotional state change. Your heart rate will increase, your jaw will tighten, you'll start to feel very angry. That's when you want to start to feel that rage, and you want to breathe and control it. From there you want some kind to work to the point where you have some kind of external kinesthetic release. So you might stand in front of a bob, a bag, a guy with a big shield, or padded assailants, but make sure there's safety elements involved, and visualize, create this summoning, and then on a cue, an auditory cue, you would fight or you would attack with a preordained sequence if you're working on a bob or a bag or whatever. What you'll find if you tap into it for real time is that you just start to lose it, and there's a need for the teacher, the third person that should be there on, and safety man with a whistle, to blow the whistle, bring a stop to events, help you get your composure by calibrating your peripheral vision as you gets you to breathe and lower your heart rate. That over a period of time, not taking too long at all, will teach you how to switch it on and off, pretty much like a switch. The hardest thing is getting people to access it. Particularly with women, how do you access the part of yourself that's prepared to engage in violence? So with women, you usually play the maternal instinct card, and there's various other things that you can do. But really, I would say visualize internally, imagine something that you would really fight for, truly fight for, which is cemented to your belief system, and then use adrenaline as fuel and engage it with controlled aggression. Okay. 6. The most important thing to remember and understand when headbutting. Right, very quickly, you need to use the correct part of your head. For anywhere from the top of your eyebrows to the crown of your head is a battering ram, middle, left and right. Then targeting. The only target that you're going to employ the headbutt is anywhere below the guy's eyebrows to this top lip. So you're looking at nose, cheekbones, orbital sockets, temples. Anything below the top lip, mouthful of razor blades. Anything above the eyebrows, knocking yourself out. So that's all I've got to say about headbutts. Question 7. There is a wide demographic that did not grow up in school yard fights, bar fights, and has encountered any physical aggression before and are now adults. Right, so these adults who may now understand the importance of self-defense know how, whether to protect themselves, their family, children, homes or businesses. What advice do you have for them on where to begin this late in their lives, and how can Urban Combatives cater to their lifestyle schedules of these people who are only now interested in perhaps strengthening their self-defense skills? Well, first thing I would teach anyone is that there's 3 elements of self-protection. The first element of self-protection is personal security, soft skills. So becoming street smart. So developing a sharpened OODA loop, good radar, good awareness. Having a good understanding of pre-threat behaviour, from street criminals and from anything else. Just gather an understanding of pre-threat cue behaviour elements. There's plenty of information out there. Trust your instincts also, that would be a big thing. Understand that the earlier you spot a potential problem, the more probability you've got to avoid and escape, evade and not be there. Because the best self-protection of all is don't be there. And the only way you're unlikely to be there is if you've seen it coming and you can avoid it. So awareness and understanding of pre-threat recognition would be the first thing I would give them. Then I would give them an understanding of how to protect personal space, use contact management, have the understanding that any potential violent confrontation that you find yourself in, there could be a weapon involved, and there's likely to be more than one subject, hence the best reason for you to avoid and escape in the first place. So the first element of self-protection relates to being street smart. That's what I'll give them first. In the main, that will help them more than anything else in the physical sense. The next element of self-protection is the physical dynamic. So first part of the physical dynamic looks at the highest probability of success. So if this is going to get physical, because can't avoid, can't escape, can't de-escalate, I've gone to make my way to the exit, the person's arrested my movement and is now exhibiting dangerous behaviour that creates a criteria, to me at least, from understanding what this is about, that I'm about to be assaulted. In this moment, you should have the honest belief that your life's in danger, in which case you have the right to preemptively act. That action might be I flank and I run. It might be I shove him, I posture loudly and move away. It might be I hit him with one preemptive strike, or it might be that I have to blitzkrieg through this fucker to make sure he's no longer ambulatory and no more a threat. In short, the commonality between all of those is I did something before he did something. So in terms of use of force, your highest probability of success lies in being preemptive. The third element of self-protection is self-defense. This is where you fucked up for whatever reason and now you are being assaulted, you are under attack. Well, what happens next depends on where you've been attacked, how badly you're hurt and how quickly you're likely to get over it on a psychological level in terms of shock before you can get back into the fight or not. In which case now you're fighting back. Most self-defense that begins with this notion, I haven't got a fucking clue what they're talking about, they've never been there, they're just regurgitating the pellet. Of course you should train for the what if. You know, what if I was switched on but the guy hit me first? What if he grabbed hold of me? What if there was more than one? What if all of a sudden I was taken by surprise and there's a knife to my neck? Well, it can happen. Of course it can. Anything can happen. And we train all of those contingency plans, including multiple assailants, if we go to the ground, if there's weapons involved, etc., etc. But that should never be the primary thing you teach anybody. If I had one day to teach somebody something, I would teach them soft skills, how to avoid and escape. And towards the end of that day, I'd probably teach them defence, preemptive strike, and if there was time, how to follow up. Outside of that, I mean, situational offence is for the student that's been training a while, and really you're training now for when your first 2 elements have failed. And you should do that, but it should not begin with this guy grabs hold of you and is doing this, now you must do this, this and this. Because it doesn't take into account that you had any vision before the attack materialised. It wasn't Star Trek, it didn't just materialise around your fucking neck. There was a pattern, there was a beginning, a middle and an end, and self-defence indicates you missed the beginning. So that's what I would give you. Question 8. You're collaborating with Scott Babb in Chicago in a few weeks. Well, that's been and gone now. Tell us about what you have planned, your experience and relationship with Scott and his Libra teachings, and the violence currently plaguing Chicago. Okay, well, I like Scott's method of Libre knife fighting. I took elements of it for practice with my instructors, and we had combative mentality to it. It's a fucking whole different animal. I liked teaching with alongside Scott. Basically, it worked. I taught Unarmed Combatives for an hour and a half, and he taught his thing for an hour and a half, and we integrated, and it worked really well. Scott's a lovely guy, very, very humble, you know, very talented at what he's doing, and his method in terms of where does it belong? Well, fucking zombie apocalypse, home invasion, you know, Mexico, South Africa, or Spec Ops. It doesn't belong in civilian protection, but from an academic study point of view, it's fucking great. It's good for attributes. The full combative student, in my mind, should be good, very good with unarmed skills. Should be very good with an edge weapon. Should be good with an impact weapon. Any improvised weapon of opportunity. Should be able to shoot. Should also have an understanding of tactical medicine. Be able to drive offensively and defensively. You know, some bushcraft knowledge, etc., etc. There's many skills. So, just for the training point of view, I like Scott's material. It's designed for how a knife would be used, and particularly it gives you an understanding of how it could be used by criminality. So, and like I say, I mean, Scott was so open to, you know, well-meaning advice, just in terms for teaching and stuff like that. And I tried some things that he did a slightly different way, and he let me show that. So I thought he was an absolute top professional. Very nice to work with. Like to work with him again. Go to Chicago most of the time. We've got, you know, my brother Marty's there, and I go there to teach probably more than anywhere else in the US. Chicago is, yeah, definitely plagued with violence, as is a lot of other places. You know, I'm also, you know, Detroit is not dissimilar, but I know Chicago has been in the headlines so much in recent times. In terms of, you know, what Chicagoans should do about that, I mean, you know, carry concealed firearm, get some good training, and get as street smart as you can from the various good people that are around. You know, what do you do in a situation like that? You know, it's time to get big or go home. Okay, right, question 9, the throat. What are the dangers of strikes to the throat? Is it something that should be executed with caution, if not in a life or death situation? Well, striking the throat, as in the trachea, the windpipe and everything else, is not going to be recommended. I mean, it's a soft target. Everything vital for life goes to the head, you know, oxygen and blood, and to the heart and lungs, again, oxygen and blood flows through the neck. So any catastrophic injury that would collapse an airway is a no-no for civilian self-protection. But of course, you know, situation could be dire where it's reasonable and necessary under the circumstances that you face to employ a throat strike. If a smaller woman is against a very large aggressive male, he's pinned into the wall and he's about to fucking do fuck knows what to her, and she could put the point of her bony elbow into the front of his windpipe at speed and velocity with her weight behind it, then I say she's got a chance to get herself out of the situation. I would also say that that's probably the only thing she could do to get herself out of the situation, in which case that would be reasonable and necessary. Just understand, if you hit the front of the throat with a hard weapon such as a punch or an elbow, you're most likely to crush the structure. You know, even with a choke, which is the radial part of your forearm against the front of the throat, squeezing in, a choke can collapse the airway. Hence, the strangle, where you are now applying pressure either side of the carotid artery, is considered more humane, because it compresses that, blood flow is lost to the brain, person goes unconscious, then blood flows back in place. But if you crush the larynx, it's fucking done, it's all over. But yes, I believe it should have a place in life or death situation. Of course it should. And in terms of special forces, you know, if I need to gun jams, you're about to kill me and I need to put that shot in to drop you before I can make a transition to another weapon, then it's fucking happening. So yeah, it has a place. Alright, question 10. Over the past year there have been alleged reports of refugee attacks on women in various countries. Some say this is a political play to ignite fear in the public, to sway perception. Whether true or not, what advice do you have for women who are living every day in an environment that is plagued with the possibility of rape? Right, this is more poignant to me than most, because most of my teaching is done in Europe. So I teach in France, Belgium, Holland, Germany, Scandinavia, pretty much all over, as well as into Eastern Europe. So what I have found from the German people, from the French people, is that their statistics are clearly pointing to attacks on women on the increase of up to ridiculously near enough 75%. So most attacks on women before this situation would come from a known person, a male known to them, usually within a domestic violence setting. This was up to about 75% of attacks on women in the UK based was from known people. 25% left the margin of unknown. So an attack in the street, for example, that's a bag snatch or a sexual assault. Now that dynamic has almost reversed itself in areas of Europe, because you're frequently seeing immigrants of Syrian origin targeting white women in a gang rape context. So it's not fucking fantasy, it's happening. And whether it's happening as a part of a master plan or as a bigger picture or as a probe to see how people react, it's happening, and people need to open their mind to that. So when I teach women, just taught recently in Europe, or big women's class, this had to be brought to everybody's ear, because your response in terms of personal protection must adapt as the threat changes or evolves. And the threat is evolving in many different ways, even outside of the context of attacks on women. Things are becoming different. The enemy is attacking in a different way. So you need to be, first of all, informed and understand the fucking problem before you can start looking at the solution box that you've got or how you may need to adapt to it. So yeah, I would say that this is a very real thing, and women should be informed, and they are when they come to my seminars. Question 11. Would you say that, oddly enough, that a female who may generally be smaller or less powerful than an attacker or a rapist might have a better chance at successful self-defense encounter when closer to the attacker? Whether being bear-hugged or pinned down, mounted, what key tactics can we utilise when up close to the attacker or rapist? Well, understand that where else is it going to happen from? It's going to happen from close quarters. In the street, there's two ranges. There's conversation range, where we shake hands, and then there's in your fucking face range, which is where you're being intimidated or assaulted. Attacks on women happen from conversation range to fucking in your face intimidation range very fucking quickly, because his first method or tool that he'll employ will be to grab, slam, rag around, control or squeeze as he verbally asserts to ascertain dominance. From there, she's totally compliant. She's just a plaything, which is of course the objective. But in terms of what could she do from a greater space, well, she could stab him in the eye or something, or with a good fucking solid eye jab as he come in and then run, then I'd recommend it. If she could eye blitz him as he come in before he got his hands near her, I'd recommend that. If she could boot him in the fucking groin, kick his knee out, whatever, and run, she should run. But in most cases, whether she does something first or not, she's going to end up at extreme close quarters, either against the wall, the subject in front, or worse than that, on the ground. In which case, I would definitely employ deception. Employ almost capitulation, deception that you're not going to resist, you're in up for this. You start to undo a couple of buttons, you stroke his face, you start to undo his belt, and then you drive your fucking thumb through his eyeball, and then bite his face in the ear, and then slam him into the wall and go alley cat mental. I believe that you probably need deception, and at that kind of range. That's the con. The pro is, at that kind of range, you've got all your fucking tools. You can bite, you can fucking gouge, stomp, fucking create space enough to strike. You can do lots of things, use the environment. So, the essence of combatives training is at extreme close quarters. So I wouldn't use it as an advantage. I teach my women to use it as a disadvantage. I teach my women to use it as an advantage. Okay, question 12. Multiple opponents, right? What are the top 3 things to remember? First of all, mindset. Got to keep your fucking head. How you think affects how you feel. How you feel affects what you do. What you do affects the results you get back. So if your mentality, you're dealing with 3 people, is, oh shit, there's 3 of them, I'm fucked, then you're fucked. You need to change that shit. You need to reframe your perspective. So think instead, great, fucking multiple target opportunities. Golden opportunity to really test my tools and answer that nagging question inside the back of your head: can I really do this? You have to think in a much more productive way. Mindset is the top one. So next, I would say tactical positioning, tactical mobility. Moving targets harder to track, therefore harder to hit, but where you place yourself with multiple opponents is, or assailants is everything. Place yourself to the outside. If you're dealing with 2, this is much easier than 3, but you need to stack, shield and flank. Final thing is preemption. Whatever the fuck you do, do something before they do something, whether that's shove one and run, or whether that's drop the first one that's closest as soon as you flank. The key thing in dealing with multiple assailants is get the fucking numbers down quickly and act ballsy. It's very possible in a situation like this to drop one physically and psych out 2 on an emotional level. I've done it. But outside of that, as soon as you drop the first one, do it with tenacity and be prepared to fight until there's nothing left to fight about. Question 13. How much does psychology play a role in what you teach your students? Well, how much do you think so far in this interview? Because, I've gone back to the importance of mindset all the way through. Kelly McCann was on the money when he said, combatives is 90% mental attitude, 10% skill. Question 14. What does Lee Morrison have planned for self-defense world in 2017? Well, an updated website, a really cool, easy to navigate website, everything online and downloadable. So we're done with the DVDs now, and what we're looking at doing is just spreading UC as much as we can to the good people that need it. So there's going to be an affiliate program that's available for people to sharing the knowledge and take part. I don't believe in, and have never believed in, here's your certificate, now you're a coach. Fuck that. If you're an instructor in UC, then you've earned it. So there's a way to become an instructor, and there's quite a lot of instructors in UC, but that's not what it's all about. I hope that in many countries there'll be many. Right now we have probably about 20 instructors in about 5 different countries, which is great, but I would like that to span. But anything that is hard and worthy, people just don't seem to break a sweat with, so, but I don't mind. I don't want to ever subscribe to here's your money, pay your certificate, now you're an instructor. You've got to earn it for that. But what I would like for UC is to hit some countries that I've never been to before. I've taught in over 35 countries now. I'd like to get out to the Far East, to the Philippines, to Thailand. I'd like to possibly experiment, going to Mexico. I'd like to do some more stuff with Scott Babb. I'd like to do just network with good people and share the knowledge. Basically, that's what it's all about. Continue to grow and see my people grow. Okay, well, that pretty much encompasses with question 15, so I'm going to leave it there. Appreciate your time. Peace.